The stars were silent witnesses to an approaching storm. Beyond the orbit of Pluto, a fleet of ships slowed from speeds faster than light. They were sleek and dark, with curves that seemed to bend the space around them. The largest ship moved ahead of the others, its sensors scanning the solar system ahead. Captain James Reed rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the monitor. For 3 days, the Deep Space Radar Station on Europa had been picking up strange energy spikes. At first, he thought it was just another false alarm, but this was different. The pattern was too regular, too precise. "Sir, you need to see this," called Technician Mike from across the room. The signal changed. I think it's a message." Reed moved quickly to Mike's station. The screen showed a series of pulses that repeated in a clear pattern. "Have you run it through the translation matrix?" "Yes, sir. It's in a mathematical language, but the computer says it's a greeting and a request to speak with Earth's leaders." Reed felt his heart skip a beat. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally found what it was looking for, or rather, what they were looking for had found humanity. "Contact Earth Defense Force Command immediately," Reed ordered. Tell them we have visitors." 3 days later, General Wilson stood at the window of the United Nations building in New York, watching the unusual craft descend through the clouds. Unlike the ships humans had built, this one made no sound. It simply glided down like a leaf on a gentle breeze, landing in the center of the specially cleared area. "They're punctual," said Anna, the chief diplomat standing beside him. "That's a good sign." Wilson grunted. "Or they just wanted to show off how precisely they can control their ships." The ship, about the size of a small passenger plane, settled on the ground. Its surface was dark blue, almost black, with flowing lines that seemed to shift when you looked at them too long. A section of the hull simply disappeared, revealing a doorway. 3 figures emerged. They walked upright on 2 legs, but that was where the similarity to humans ended. The aliens stood at least 7 feet tall, with slender bodies covered in what looked like a fine silver fur. Their faces had 4 eyes, 2 large ones in the normal position, and 2 smaller ones near their temples. They had no visible nose, just 2 slits, and their mouths were small and lipless. "Remember," Anna whispered, "no sudden movements. We've practiced the greeting ritual their advance messages described." Wilson nodded, but his hand stayed close to his sidearm. 20 years in the military had taught him to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The alien in the middle approached. It was wearing something that looked like flowing robes in a material that caught the light in strange ways. It stopped 10 feet away and raised both 4-fingered hands, palms forward. "People of Earth," it spoke, its voice strangely musical despite coming through a translation device at its throat. "I am Tull, ambassador of the Vorn Collective. We come in peace and with great interest in your world." Anna stepped forward and mirrored the gesture. "Ambassador Tull, I am Anna, representing the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. This is General Wilson of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome you to Earth." Tull's large eyes blinked slowly. "It gives us joy to meet another intelligent species. The galaxy is vast, but life is precious and rare." The formal greetings continued, with practiced words on both sides. But Wilson noticed how the alien's smaller eyes kept darting around, taking in the armed guards, the military vehicles parked at a distance, and the scars on the old UN building. Remnants of a terrorist attack from years ago that had never been fully repaired. Later that evening, in a specially prepared suite at the UN complex, Tull stood before a communication device. The door was locked, the room swept for listening devices, and a field generator created a bubble that blocked any surveillance. "High Command, initial contact has been made," Tull reported. "The species calls itself human collectively, though they identify primarily with smaller tribal groups they call nations." A voice responded, deep and gravelly compared to Tull's musical tones. "Assessment. Technologically primitive compared to us. They have basic space travel, but have barely left their own system. Their weapons are crude but numerous. Threat level. Tull hesitated, uncertain. There is something unusual about them. Their historical records show continuous warfare amongst themselves. Their planet bears the scars of constant conflict. That suggests weakness, not strength, the voice replied. Internal division makes conquest simple. We have seen this pattern before. Yes, but Tull paused, trying to find the right words. In most species, such division leads to collapse. These humans have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history, yet they continue to advance. They do not break. They adapt. They build stronger weapons. They survive conditions that would destroy most species. There was silence from the other end for a moment. Interesting. Continue observation. Standard protocol. Evaluate, infiltrate, assess weaknesses. If they follow the pattern of other warlike species, they will destroy themselves given enough time and the right nudges. And if they don't follow the pattern, then we will help them along that path. All species break eventually, Ambassador. It is merely a question of finding the right pressure point. The communication ended, and Tull moved to the window, looking out at the city of New York. Lights glittered as far as the eye could see, a testament to the humans' determination to push back the darkness. In the distance, construction crews worked through the night, rebuilding a section of the city damaged in some recent conflict. Tull's 4 eyes narrowed slightly. Something about these humans disturbed the ambassador deeply. Their worlds were filled with memorials to wars. Their entertainment glorified conflict. Their children played at battle. Yet they had not wiped themselves out. Instead, they had turned their battle instincts into a strange kind of strength. Curious creatures, Tull whispered. I wonder what it would take to make you truly surrender. Outside, a thunderstorm began. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the city in stark white light. It reminded Tull of weapons fire, of battlefields across 100 worlds. The ambassador turned away from the window. The Vorn had conquered every species they had encountered, one way or another. These humans would be no different, or so Tull hoped, because the alternative was something the Vorn had never faced before. A species that could not be broken because it had been breaking and reforging itself for thousands of years. A species that knew how to fight. 1 month after the arrival of the Vorn, their embassy stood tall and gleaming in the heart of Washington, D.C. Unlike the blocky human buildings around it, the Vorn structure flowed like liquid metal frozen in time, its surface changing colors with the light. People gathered daily just to watch it shimmer in the sun. Jack Miller adjusted his security uniform as he stood at his post near the embassy entrance. After 15 years in the Army and 2 tours in the Middle East, he had thought guard duty would be boring. He was wrong. Another delivery, his partner Tom said, nodding toward an approaching truck. Jack watched as the vehicle stopped at the checkpoint. 3rd one this week. What do you think they're bringing in? Tom shrugged. Who knows? Ambassador says it's cultural artifacts and research equipment. The back of the truck opened, revealing several large containers. Jack frowned as he noticed strange markings on one of them. His time in military intelligence had taught him to notice details. Those symbols matched ones he had seen on equipment in the restricted section of the embassy, an area where even the human security team wasn't allowed. You ever wonder what they're really doing in there? Jack asked quietly. Not my job to wonder, Tom replied. Besides, they've been nothing but helpful. My sister got that Vorn medical treatment for her cancer last week. Doctors say she'll make a full recovery. Jack nodded but remained silent. The aliens had indeed shared some of their medical technology, helping with diseases that humans had struggled to cure. Yet something felt off about their generosity. Why give away such valuable knowledge so freely? Inside the embassy, in a laboratory hidden beneath the main structure, Ambassador Tull observed a series of tests. Screens displayed data about human physiology, psychology, and social structures. Another Vorn scientist, Mela, approached with a tablet. The results are fascinating, Mela said. Human pain threshold is remarkably high compared to other species we've studied. Explain, Toll requested. Mila touched the screen, bringing up comparison charts. Most species we've encountered evolved to avoid pain. It signals danger and triggers retreat. Humans certainly feel pain, but their response is different. They often push through it, especially if they believe in their cause. Their medical records show this as well, Toll noted. Humans with severe injuries continue fighting. Their soldiers will carry wounded comrades for miles rather than leave them behind. It makes no logical sense, Mela said. Sacrificing yourself for others weakens the group. Toll's 4 eyes blinked slowly. Unless the group values that sacrifice and fights harder because of it. A troubling thought, Mela admitted. The High Command will want to know about this. Toll moved to another screen showing Earth's many nations. What about their divisions? Have we found ways to exploit them? Yes and no, Mela replied. Their countries compete and sometimes fight, but when faced with an external threat, they often unite. Historical records show this pattern repeatedly. Toll made a gesture of frustration. The High Command expects results. We need to find their breaking point. Perhaps, Mela suggested, we need a practical test. Dr. Lisa Warren walked through the halls of Stanford University with quick, determined steps. As one of Earth's leading xenobiologists, she had been invited to collaborate with the Warren on several research projects. At first, she had been thrilled by the opportunity to work with an advanced alien species. Now she was afraid. She entered her office and locked the door behind her. From her bag, she removed a small data device she had managed to copy from the Warren laboratory. Her hands trembled as she connected it to her computer. Please be wrong, she whispered to herself as the files opened. The first document was a species assessment form, something the Warren apparently created for every intelligent species they encountered. Lisa scrolled through, her heart sinking as she read. Species, human, Terra/Earth. Technological level, 3.2, pre-interstellar. Military capability, 4.7, surprisingly high for tech level. Recommended approach, gradual subversion rather than direct confrontation. Status, assessment ongoing, preliminary categorization, potential threat. Lisa continued scrolling and found a database of other species, hundreds of them, all with similar assessment forms, all marked with final statuses like pacified, integrated, or extinct. They're not explorers, Lisa whispered. They're conquerors. Her phone rang, making her jump. The caller ID showed Jack Miller, a security guard she had met at a diplomatic reception last week. She had given him her number after noticing how carefully he watched the Warren. Dr. Warren, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. We need to talk, Jack said without greeting. Not over the phone. Can you meet me at the Lincoln Memorial in an hour? Yes, she said. I have something to show you too. Ambassador Toll stood before the communication device once again, reporting to the High Command. The assessment continues, but we've discovered concerning traits in these humans. Toll explained. They respond to threats not with submission, but with increased resistance. Their history shows this repeatedly. This is why we advised gradual approaches, the voice replied. Direct force is rarely our first option. I believe we need to test their response to loss, Toll suggested. Their colony on Mars is small and isolated. A targeted strike could reveal how they react to defeat. There was a pause before the voice responded. Proceed with caution. Disguise our involvement. Make it appear as an accident or an attack by unknown forces. It will be done, Toll confirmed. We have already positioned our stealth vessels near their red planet. After ending the communication, Toll moved to a viewing platform that overlooked the city. Humans moved about their daily lives, unaware they were being studied, analyzed, and judged. Most species the Warren had encountered followed predictable patterns when facing a superior force. They submitted, they bargained, they surrendered to survive. But these humans were different. Their history was filled with examples of smaller forces standing against larger ones, of defeated armies rising again, of nations bombed to rubble rebuilding and returning to fight. It was unsettling. Toll's smaller eyes narrowed. Perhaps after the Mars incident, they would understand what they truly faced. Perhaps then, they would learn to kneel like all the others. At the Lincoln Memorial, Jack and Lisa sat on the steps, speaking quietly while pretending to admire the monument. They had both taken precautions to avoid surveillance, leaving their phones in signal-blocking bags. "They're bringing in testing equipment," Jack explained. "The kind used for weapons research, and something that looks like simulation chambers." Lisa nodded and showed him the data device. "They've conquered other species before. Many of them. I think they're assessing our weaknesses. But why share their medical technology? Why help us at all?" "I think," Lisa said slowly, "they're studying our responses, like scientists giving treats to lab rats to see how they behave." Jack was about to respond when his emergency phone buzzed, the one connected to the global security network. His face paled as he read the message. "What is it?" Lisa asked. "Mars colony has gone silent," he said, his voice tight. All communication suddenly stopped. "They're sending rescue ships, but it will take weeks to get there." Lisa's eyes widened. "It's starting, isn't it?" Jack nodded grimly. "I think this is just the beginning." Above them, the stone eyes of Abraham Lincoln stared into the distance, a silent witness to humanity's next great test, a test that would determine whether they would remain free or join the long list of conquered species in the Vorn database. The Mars colony disaster changed everything. The official story called it a catastrophic life support failure, but rumors spread quickly. Rescue teams reported unusual energy readings and strange damage patterns that didn't match any known technical malfunction. 3 days after the news broke, Ambassador Toll stood before a bank of screens inside the Vorn embassy, watching humans around the world react. The aliens had expected panic, perhaps even riots. Instead, they witnessed something entirely different. "This makes no sense," Mela said, pointing to the data. "Look at their response pattern." Toll studied the screens. In New York, Paris, Beijing, and 100 other cities, humans gathered in silent vigils for the Mars colonists. But between the morning, something else was happening. Military recruitment centers reported record numbers of volunteers. Defense contractors worked around the clock. Nations that had been enemies for decades quietly shared information and resources. "They're not cowering," Toll observed. "They're preparing." "For what?" "We made sure there was no evidence of attack." "They suspect anyway," Toll replied. "Their instincts are troubling." On another screen, a news report showed the United Nations emergency session. The Earth Defense Force was being expanded. The reporter mentioned that over 2 million citizens have volunteered for military service in the last 48 hours alone. "High Command must see this," Mela said. "These humans don't react like other species. When threatened, they don't become more docile. They become more dangerous." Jack Miller was no longer a security guard. After sharing his suspicions with his superiors, he had been quietly transferred to a special intelligence unit focused on the Vorn. Now he sat in an underground facility, reviewing surveillance footage of the embassy. "They're watching us closely," said Commander Davis, his new boss. "Every news channel, every social media platform. They seem particularly interested in our response to Mars." Jack nodded. "Because they're responsible. They wanted to see how we'd react to a punch." "And how are we reacting, Miller? In your opinion?" Jack thought about it. "Like we always do, sir. We're getting ready to punch back." Davis smiled grimly. "Dr. Warren is here. She has something to show us." Lisa entered the room, looking tired but determined. She placed a data tablet on the table. "I've analyzed their historical records more thoroughly," she said. "The ones I managed to copy. The Vorn have a pattern they follow with every species they encounter." She brought up a diagram on the screen. "First, assessment. They study the species, looking for weaknesses. Then isolation. They cut the species off from potential allies. Finally, domination. Either direct conquest or forcing the species into becoming a client state. And where are we in this pattern? Davis asked. Still an assessment, Lisa replied. But Mars was the first step toward isolation. They're testing our resolve before committing more resources. Jack leaned forward. We need to confront them. Let them know we're onto them. Agreed, Davis said, but carefully. We need more proof first. That evening, Ambassador Toll received an unexpected visitor. Anna, the human diplomat from the first contact meeting, arrived at the embassy requesting an urgent private conversation. In Toll's private office, with its strange curved furniture and soft blue lighting, Anna sat stiffly. Ambassador, I'll be direct, she said. We have concerns about the Mars incident. Toll's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A tragic accident. We have offered our technology to help improve safety protocols on your future colonies. That's generous, Anna replied. But our investigation teams found energy signatures matching Vorn technology near the colony before communications were lost. It was a bluff. The humans had no such evidence, but Anna watched Toll carefully. The alien's smaller eyes twitched slightly. An impossible finding, Toll said smoothly. Perhaps your equipment was damaged or misread our research vessels. We have been conducting scientific studies throughout your system, with permission. Of course, Anna said, just as you've studied other species before us. Now all 4 of Toll's eyes fixed on her intensely. What do you mean? We're not as primitive as you might think, Ambassador. We've accessed some of your records. The Delphians, the Centauri, the Mox, all species that encountered the Vorn, and then mysteriously lost their independence. Toll stood slowly, towering over Anna. Your information is incomplete and misunderstood. Then explain it to me, Anna challenged. For a long moment, Toll was silent. Then, surprisingly, the alien sat back down. Your species is unique in our experience, Toll said finally. Most intelligent beings evolve away from conflict. They seek harmony, stability. When faced with superior power, they submit to avoid destruction. And we don't, Anna stated. No, you don't. Toll's voice carried an emotion Anna couldn't identify. Your history bewilders us. You fight wars that last decades. You endure hardships that would break other species. When defeated, you do not stay defeated. You rise again, often stronger than before. Is that why you attacked Mars? To see how we respond. Toll didn't deny it this time. We needed to understand. The High Command believed you would panic, turn against each other, blame your leaders for inadequate protection. Instead, we united, Anna said, as we always do against outside threats. Yes, Toll seemed to slump slightly. This is what I've been trying to explain to the High Command. You humans have a quality we haven't encountered before, which is, the more you are threatened, the more dangerous you become. Within hours, Anna's conversation with Toll leaked to the press. Whether the Vorn released it deliberately or human intelligence agencies were responsible, the effect was the same. Humanity learned the truth. They were being evaluated for conquest. Jack and Lisa watched the news reports from the intelligence facility. This changes everything, Jack said. They can't pretend anymore. On screen, crowds gathered outside the Vorn embassy. Not in panic, but in quiet, determined anger. Military vehicles moved into position around major cities. The president was about to address the world. Look at the Vorn ships. Lisa pointed to another screen showing Earth orbit. The alien vessels were moving, taking up new positions. They're preparing for something, Jack said grimly. Commander Davis burst into the room. We're picking up massive energy readings from their fleet. Multiple targets locked across Earth's surface. They're attacking. Lisa asked, her voice shaking. Davis nodded. Looks like they decided we failed their test. Jack stood up, his face set in determined lines. No, we passed their test. That's why they're attacking now. They're afraid of what happens if they wait. On the main screen, the president appeared before the United Nations. His words would be remembered for generations to come. People of Earth, today we face a threat unlike any in human history. The Vorn came to us with promises of friendship while planning our subjugation. They believed we would be easy to conquer because we fight among ourselves. They failed to understand that our capacity for conflict, the very thing they saw as weakness, has prepared us for this moment. We know how to fight. We know how to endure. We know how to win against impossible odds. And now we will fight together. As he spoke, the first Vorn weapons fired from orbit. Bright beams of energy streaked toward Earth's surface. The invasion had begun. Outside the intelligence facility, the sky turned red with enemy fire. But instead of running, civilians were moving with purpose, heading to emergency shelters, gathering supplies, helping others. There was fear, yes, but something stronger pushed it aside. They don't understand us at all, do they? Lisa said quietly. Jack shook his head. No, and that's our advantage. Alarms blared as the facility went into lockdown. Humanity was about to show the Vorn exactly what they were capable of when fighting for their survival. The real test was just beginning. The first wave of the Vorn attack devastated coastal cities around the world. Their energy weapons carved glowing paths through buildings, bridges, and dams. Military bases were hit hardest, with precision strikes taking out communication centers and weapon stockpiles. General Wilson stood in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching disaster unfold on multiple screens. Red dots appeared across the digital map as cities reported massive damage. "Status report," he demanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. "New York hit hard, sir. London, too. Beijing reporting 70% destruction of military facilities. Our satellites are being picked off one by one." Wilson nodded. He had expected this. The Vorn technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. This was always going to be a bloody first day. What about our countermeasures? A young officer stepped forward. "Operation Blackout is ready, sir. We can trigger it on your command." Wilson looked at the president, who had been evacuated to the facility hours earlier. The president nodded grimly. "Do it," Wilson ordered. Across the planet, hidden EMP devices activated simultaneously. The pulses weren't powerful enough to affect the Vorn ships in orbit, but they served their purpose, cutting off all electronic communications planet-wide. To the Vorn, it would appear that Earth's technology had been crippled by their attack. In reality, it was part of the plan. Beneath the digital silence, a separate communication network, built in secret over the past week, hummed to life. Old technology, radio waves, and physical message carriers, methods so primitive the Vorn wouldn't think to monitor them. "Now we go dark," Wilson said, "and we fight back." Jack Miller drove through the burning ruins of Washington, D.C., with Lisa Warren in the passenger seat and a truckload of survivors behind them. The Vorn embassy was now a launching point for their ground troops. Tall, armored figures that moved with frightening speed through the streets. "The safe zone is 5 miles ahead," Jack said, swerving around debris. "The old subway tunnels have been converted to shelters." Lisa clutched a metal case to her chest. "We need to get this data to the science team. It could be our only advantage." Their truck rounded a corner and came face to face with 3 Vorn soldiers. Jack slammed on the brakes as the aliens raised their weapons. "Hold on," he shouted, spinning the wheel hard. The truck skidded sideways, crashing through the wall of an abandoned building. Glass and brick showered down as they smashed through to the other side. "They're following," Lisa shouted, looking back. Jack grabbed his radio, one of the old models unaffected by the EMP. "This is Hawk 1. We have hostiles on our tail, requesting intervention at grid point 47. A crackly voice responded. "Copy, Hawk 1. Surprise package is ready." As the truck sped down the empty street, Lisa looked back to see the Vorn soldiers in pursuit. They moved unnaturally fast. gaining on the vehicle with each bound. Suddenly, the ground beneath the aliens erupted. A preset explosive trap, planted days earlier, sent the Vorn soldiers flying. It wouldn't kill them. Their armor was too strong, but it would slow them down. Primitive but effective, Lisa said with grim satisfaction. Jack nodded. That's humanity's new battle plan. We can't match their technology, so we're fighting dirty. Ambassador Tull stood in the Vorn command ship, watching the invasion unfold. The main view screen showed Earth's major cities burning, while Vorn ground forces established control zones. The first phase is proceeding as expected, reported the military commander, Krell. Their communications are down. Their military bases are destroyed or isolated. We should have full planetary control within 3 days. Tull's 4 eyes narrowed. Something isn't right. What do you mean? They're outmatched in every way. Their response is too organized, Tull said. Look at the pattern of resistance. It's not random. They're following a plan. Krell scoffed. What plan could survive our first strike? We destroyed their command centers. Did we? Tull brought up a different view on the screen. Our ground forces report ambushes that seem prepared in advance. Traps that couldn't have been set up after our attack began. They couldn't have known we were coming, Krell insisted. I think they did, Tull said quietly. I think they've been preparing since Mars. On the screen, a Vorn landing craft exploded as it touched down in what had appeared to be an abandoned airfield. The humans had set a trap, using their own destroyed buildings as bait. High Command wants results, Krell said coldly. If they're fighting harder than expected, we'll simply increase the pressure. Tull watched as Krell ordered more ships into Earth's atmosphere. The Vorn were committing their reserves already, something they rarely needed to do when conquering a planet. These humans were proving more troublesome than any species they had encountered before. In the underground lab beneath Mount Weather, Lisa Warren worked frantically with a team of scientists. The data she had stolen from the Vorn embassy might contain the key to fighting back. Their armor has a weakness, she explained, pointing to the molecular structure displayed on the screen. It's designed to deflect energy weapons, but it becomes brittle when exposed to a specific frequency of sound. Dr. Tom Harris, the lead weapons scientist, studied the data. We can't generate that frequency powerfully enough to use as a weapon. Not directly, Lisa agreed. But what if we use their own weapons against them? Their energy rifles operate on a quantum principle that creates a harmonic wave. If we could reflect that energy back at the right angle. Harris's eyes widened. We could create a resonance effect that would shatter their armor. Exactly, Lisa said. We need to design reflective panels with precisely calculated angles. In another section of the facility, Jack Miller was briefing a group of Special Forces soldiers. The Vorn expect us to fight conventionally, he explained. To defend strategic locations, to protect our cities. We're not going to do that. He pointed to a map. Instead, we're going to let them have the cities. Then we'll bleed them with 1,000 small cuts. Guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. Make them chase shadows. A soldier raised his hand. Sir, they have orbital superiority. They can see our movements. Jack smiled grimly. Not if we stay underground. Not if we move at night. Not if we use their expectations against them. What about civilians? Another soldier asked. There are eyes and ears, Jack said. Every delivery person. Every maintenance worker, every child on a bicycle. They're all part of our intelligence network now. The Vorn don't understand human loyalty. They think we'll betray each other to save ourselves. Above North America, a small Vorn scout ship exploded suddenly. There had been no warning, no sign of attack. One moment it was patrolling. The next it was debris raining down on the Rocky Mountains. In the command ship, Krell raged. How? How did they hit it? We detected no missiles, no energy weapons. Tull reviewed the data carefully. It appears they modified one of their passenger aircraft, filled it with explosives and slammed it into our ship. A suicide attack. That's, Irrational, Krell said, disturbed. Why would a pilot sacrifice themselves when victory is impossible? Because, Tull replied softly, humans don't fight to win. They fight because they refuse to lose. On the view screen, more explosions lit up the night side of Earth. The humans were fighting back with whatever they had, improvising weapons, setting traps, sacrificing themselves to take out Vorn troops and ships. They were losing badly, but they were making the Vorn pay for every inch of ground. And somewhere in the burning ruins of their world, they were planning something bigger. Tull could feel it. These strange, stubborn creatures weren't beaten yet. Not by a long shot. 3 weeks into the invasion, Earth burned. Major cities lay in ruins, billions sheltered underground, and Vorn ships controlled the skies. By any reasonable measure, humanity should have surrendered. They didn't. In orbit, Tull stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching tactical displays with growing concern. The High Command had sent reinforcements. 3 more battle fleets had arrived, bringing the total Vorn force to over 500 ships. It was the largest military operation in Vorn history. And still, the humans fought. We lost another supply depot, Commander Krell reported, his voice tight with anger. The humans infiltrated the perimeter and planted explosives. 40 warriors dead. How did they get past our sensors? Tull asked. They used their own dead, Krell replied with disgust. Loaded bodies with explosives and left them for our troops to examine. When our medical team approached, Tull's 4 eyes blinked slowly. They're adapting to our tactics faster than we can adjust. The High Command is losing patience, Krell warned. They're considering more, final options. Tull knew what that meant. Planetary bombardment, wiping out all life and starting over with foreign colonists. It would be a waste of resources, but the High Command was growing desperate to end this unexpectedly difficult conquest. Give me 3 more days, Tull said. There's something happening in North America, a buildup of some kind. If we can crush their last major resistance. Krell nodded reluctantly. 3 days, but no more. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in the vast underground complex that had become humanity's last command center, Jack Miller watched as Lisa Warren made final adjustments to her device. Will it work? He asked. Lisa stepped back from the complex array of mirrors, crystals, and salvaged Vorn technology. In theory, we've only had 1 chance to test it, but the results were promising. General Wilson joined them, his uniform torn and dirty from recent fighting. It has to work. We've lost too much to fail now. Around them, the last remnants of Earth's military prepared for what everyone knew would be their final stand. Soldiers checked weapons, medics prepared supplies, and technicians monitored the few remaining secure communications channels. The decoys are in position, Wilson reported. The Vorn think we're massing for a ground assault in these 5 locations. He pointed to marks on a map spread across a table. And the real target? Jack asked. Wilson's finger moved to a single point. Their command ship. Everything we have left goes toward getting your team aboard. Jack looked at the small group of soldiers who would accompany him and Lisa on what was almost certainly a suicide mission. They all knew the odds. They had all volunteered anyway. The shuttle leaves in 2 hours, Wilson said. Rest while you can. As the general walked away, Jack turned to Lisa. You know, when I took that security job at the embassy, I was just looking for something quiet after the army. Lisa smiled sadly. When I started working with the Vorn, I thought I was helping build a bridge between our species. Funny how things turn out, Jack said, looking around at the last free humans preparing for their final battle. Lisa's hand found his. Whatever happens, they'll remember that we didn't give up. Ambassador Tull walked alone through the corridors of the command ship. The Vorn had conquered dozens of species across the galaxy, but none had fought like these humans. None had continued resisting when their situation was clearly hopeless. A junior officer approached. Ambassador, we're detecting unusual energy readings from multiple locations on the surface. Show me, Tull ordered, following the officer to a monitoring station. The screen displayed 5 different locations where human forces appeared to be gathering. Thermal signatures showed thousands of warm bodies, and energy readings suggested they were powering up some kind of devices. It could be their final weapons, the officer suggested. Shall I alert Commander Krell? Tull studied the display carefully. These readings, they're too obvious. The humans know we can detect them. What are you saying? It's a trap, Tull realized suddenly. They want us to focus on these locations. The officer looked confused. But our scans show. What they want us to see, Tull interrupted. Order a deep scan of the entire North American region. Something isn't right. Jack Miller and his team of 12 soldiers rode in silence as their modified shuttle climbed through the atmosphere. The craft had been built using a combination of human and salvaged Vorn technology. With one critical feature, it was nearly invisible to Vorn sensors. Lisa sat beside Jack, the device securely strapped down in the cargo area behind them. 4 minutes to intercept, the pilot announced. Remember, Jack told his team, we only need to get Lisa and the device to their power core. Everything else is secondary. The soldiers nodded grimly. Each carried weapons designed by Lisa's team. Simple rifles modified to create the specific frequency that could weaken Vorn armor. Lisa checked her tablet. The command shift shields will be down for exactly 30 seconds when they rotate power. That's our window. The shuttle shuddered as it left Earth's atmosphere, the blackness of space spreading out before them. And there, dominating the view, was the massive Vorn command ship, a dark behemoth surrounded by hundreds of smaller vessels. There's our target, Jack said quietly. The pilot pushed the shuttle to maximum speed. Shield rotation in 10 seconds. Brace for approach. On the bridge of the command ship, alarms suddenly blared. Intrusion detected, an officer shouted. Lower docking bay. Krell spun toward the tactical display. How? There was no approach. They came through during shield rotation. The officer replied. Small craft, minimal signature. Krell activated the ship-wide alert. All warriors to the lower docking bay. Repel boarders. Tull watched the chaos unfold with a strange sense of admiration. Even now, with their world in ruins and their military shattered, the humans had found a way to strike at the heart of the Vorn fleet. They're heading for the power core, Tull realized. Seal all access points. Jack fired his modified rifle, watching with satisfaction as the Vorn warrior's armor cracked and shattered. 3 more soldiers fell as the team pushed forward through the narrow corridors of the alien ship. This way, Lisa called, following the map they had pieced together from stolen data. 2 more members of Jack's team fell to Vorn weapons fire as they reached a massive doorway. This is it, Lisa said. The power core is beyond this door. Jack placed explosives while the remaining soldiers formed a defensive perimeter. Whatever you're going to do it fast, he told Lisa as the door blew open. Inside was an enormous chamber, pulsing with blue energy. At its center, a column of light stretched from floor to ceiling, the ship's main power core. Lisa rushed to position her device directly in front of the core. Cover me, she shouted as she began the activation sequence. Vorn warriors poured through every entrance, their weapons firing. Jack and his remaining soldiers fought desperately, buying Lisa the time she needed. Almost there, Lisa called as the device began to hum with power. A Vorn energy blast struck Jack in the shoulder, spinning him around. As he fell, he saw Lisa complete the final connection. The device flared to life, its array of mirrors and crystals capturing the energy from the core and reflecting it back at a specific frequency. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The resonance waves spread outward, causing the Vorn armor to crack and shatter throughout the ship. More importantly, the wave traveled through the Vorn communication network, jumping from ship to ship across their entire fleet. Tull watched in disbelief as warriors across the bridge collapsed, their armor failing and breaking apart. What have they done? He whispered. On the view screen, Vorn ships began to drift out of formation as their crews lost control. Some collided with others, creating expanding clouds of debris. The humans had found the one weakness in Vorn technology and exploited it perfectly. But even as the fleet fell into chaos, Tull understood the deeper, more terrifying truth. It wasn't the clever weapon that had defeated them. It was the will behind it, the absolute refusal to surrender, no matter the odds. In all the Vorn's long history of conquest, they had never encountered a species like humanity. 6 months later, the last Vorn ships retreated from Earth's solar system. The planet was scared and damaged, its cities in ruins, but humanity had survived. More than survived, they had won. Jack Miller stood on a hillside overlooking the remains of Washington, D.C., where reconstruction was already underway. His arm was still in a sling from the injuries he'd suffered on the command ship, but the doctors said he would regain full use eventually. Lisa Warren joined him, carrying a tablet with the latest data. The Vorn have abandoned all their territories in this sector of the galaxy, she reported. Other species they conquered are declaring independence. They won't be back, will they? Jack asked. Lisa shook her head. I don't think so. According to the messages we intercepted, the High Command has classified Earth as unconquerable. Jack looked up at the sky, where the first human ships built with adapted Vorn technology were preparing to venture beyond the solar system. You know what's funny? He said. They came here thinking we were weak because we fight each other. They never understood that's what made us strong. Lisa nodded. Tull figured it out, though, right at the end. Among the debris of the command ship, they had found a final transmission from Ambassador Tull to the Vorn homeworld. Its message was simple but profound. The humans possess a terrifying truth we never understood. Their strength lies not in their weapons, their technology, or their numbers. It lies in their will to fight. Even when victory seems impossible, they continue. This is not a species that can be conquered. This is a species to be feared. As the sun set over the rebuilding planet, humanity looked to the stars not in fear, but with determination. The universe was vast and likely filled with dangers, but Earth had proven one thing beyond doubt. Humans would never stop fighting for their right to exist. And that, as the Vorn had learned, was a terrifying truth indeed. The room fell silent as Admiral Marcus Reed entered. His weathered face told the story of a man who had seen too much in his long years of service. Though he had retired a decade ago, the urgent message that had pulled him from his quiet home on the shores of Lake Geneva made it clear. Humanity needed him once more. Admiral on deck called out General Thompson, and the gathered officials rose to their feet. Reed waved them down with a tired hand. Save the formalities. Tell me what happened. The holographic display at the center of the table flickered to life, showing 3 distant worlds, each marked with a pulsing red dot. New Montana, Odyssey, and Horizon's Edge. Human colonies at the far reaches of settled space. The Voidborn attacked without warning, said Thompson, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. All 3 colonies hit within 6 hours. Thousands dead, many more missing. Reed's eyes narrowed. The Voidborn. They'd been isolationists for centuries. Why would they? We don't know, interrupted Counselor Diana West, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. Her usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, suggesting she hadn't slept since the attacks. That's why we called you back. No one knows the Voidborn better than you do. Reed remembered the last time he had faced the Voidborn. Over 50 years ago, during the final negotiations of the Galactic Accord that had brought 4,000 years of peace to the galaxy. They were a mysterious species with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that seemed to hold the depths of space within them. They had been reluctant signatories to the Accord, but they had signed nonetheless. Show me the attack footage, Reed commanded. The hologram shifted to show grainy surveillance images. Sleek, dark ships with violet energy signatures tore through the colony defenses as if they were made of paper. The ship's design was unmistakably voidborne, but something was different about them. "Those aren't traditional voidborne warships," Reed muttered. "They've been building something new." The door to the conference room burst open, and a young officer rushed in, her face pale. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Proxima outpost. Another attack is underway." Reed felt something cold settle in his stomach. Proxima was much closer to Earth than the other colonies, only 4 light-years away. The Voidborn were getting bolder. "How is our fleet responding?" Reed asked, already knowing the answer. General Thompson's expression hardened. "What fleet, Admiral?" "We've maintained the minimum defensive force required by the Accord. Most of our ships were converted for exploration or trade decades ago." Reed closed his eyes briefly. The great irony of the peace. Humanity had once been feared across the galaxy for their tenacity in battle and unpredictable tactics. Now, after 4 millennia of serving as diplomats and peacekeepers, they had let their military strength wane to almost nothing. Almost. "The Indomitable," Reed said suddenly. "Is she still in the Jupiter shipyards?" A flicker of hope crossed Thompson's face. "Yes, but she hasn't been fully crewed in years. She's been kept operational as a training vessel. But—" "Get her ready," Reed interrupted, "and contact the Sentinel Protocol. Authorization code, Phoenix Ascendant." The room fell silent again, but this time with shock. "The Sentinels," Counselor West whispered. "They're just a myth, a story we tell to reassure ourselves." Reed smiled grimly. "That's what we wanted everyone to believe. The Sentinels have maintained watch for 4,000 years, preparing for the day when peace might falter. Today is that day." He turned to the holographic display and expanded the map to show the entire local cluster of stars. "The Voidborn aren't acting alone. Look at the attack pattern. They're avoiding any system where the Quillari have a presence. The Quillari have been our strongest allies for millennia. Someone has been feeding the Voidborn information, turning them against us." Reed walked to the window, gazing out at the gleaming spires of New Geneva, Earth's capital since the Third Renewal. Beyond the atmosphere, he knew, the rest of humanity lived in peace across 100 worlds, unaware that their 4,000-year era of tranquility had just ended. "Call an emergency session of the Council of Worlds," he ordered. "I want to know who's missing from that meeting." As the officials hurried to carry out his orders, Reed remained at the window. He was 78 years old, born in an age of peace, trained for a war that never came. Until now. The Voidborn ships approaching Proxima would reach the colony within hours. Even if the Indomitable launched immediately, they would be too late to save it. His communication device chimed. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Proxima. You'll want to see this." The holographic display showed a grainy image of a man in civilian clothes standing in what appeared to be a mining facility. Behind him, colonists were moving with surprising efficiency, converting mining equipment into makeshift defenses. "This is Director Trent of Proxima Outpost," the man said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We've detected Voidborn ships on approach. We are activating Protocol Sentry. Request immediate backup, but be advised, we will hold." Reed felt a surge of pride. Protocol Sentry. Another myth that wasn't a myth at all. Throughout humanity's peaceful expansion, certain key individuals in every colony had been secretly trained, generation after generation, to transform their civilian infrastructure into defensive capabilities if the need ever arose. "Send word to Proxima," Reed ordered. "Tell them help is coming. And tell them humanity remembers how to fight." As the officials dispersed to carry out his orders, Admiral Reed's mind turned to the EDF Indomitable, Earth's only remaining warship, kept operational under the guise of being a training vessel. The ship would need a crew, and quickly. His gaze fell upon a personnel file that had been included in his briefing package. Dr. Eleanor Gray, Earth's foremost xenoanthropologist. Someone who understood the Voidborn better than perhaps anyone else alive. "Get me Dr. Gray," he said to his aide, "and prepare my shuttle for Jupiter. The Indomitable launches in 24 hours. As Reed gathered his things, a final report came in. The Galactic Council was convening an emergency session, and the Voidborn representatives were nowhere to be found. The 4,000-year peace had faltered, but humanity was far from broken. Dr. Eleanor Gray had never expected to be standing aboard a warship. As Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, her work usually involved quiet research and diplomatic meetings. Now she found herself hurrying down the metal corridors of the EDF Indomitable, following a young officer toward the bridge. The ship was enormous, far larger than she had imagined. Though officially listed as a training vessel, the Indomitable clearly had capabilities beyond what the public knew. "Dr. Gray," Admiral Reed greeted her as she stepped onto the bridge. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." "I didn't have much choice," she replied, thinking of the armed escort that had appeared at her university office just hours ago. "They said it was a matter of planetary security." Reed nodded grimly. "It is. We need your expertise on the Voidborn." He gestured to a large display showing tactical information. The news was not good. Proxima Colony was holding out, but barely. The makeshift defenses had slowed the Voidborn attack, but they wouldn't last much longer. "I study their culture, Admiral, not their military tactics," Gray pointed out. "Right now, I need to understand why they're attacking. 4,000 years of peace, and suddenly they strike without warning. It doesn't make sense." Dr. Gray studied the footage of the attack ships. "These designs are new to me. The Voidborn I've studied are isolationists, yes, but not aggressors. Something has changed." A crew member approached Reed with a tablet. "Sir, the crew manifest you requested. We've gathered everyone we could, but..." Reed scanned the list and frowned. "Half the positions are empty. Most people with space combat experience are either retired or dead, sir," the officer explained. "These are the best we could find on short notice." The Admiral handed the tablet back. "It will have to do. Set course for Proxima. Maximum speed." As the massive engines of the Indomitable roared to life, Dr. Gray turned to Reed. "Admiral, there's something I need to show you, something I found in the university archives." The ship's small library had been converted into a makeshift research room. Dr. Gray placed an old data crystal on the table. "This was hidden in a sealed section of the Xenocultural Archives," she explained. "It contains military intelligence on the Voidborn, dating back to before the Galactic Accord." Reed raised an eyebrow. Those records were supposed to be destroyed as part of the peace treaty. Apparently someone didn't trust the peace to last forever. Gray replied as she activated the crystal. Holographic images sprang to life, showing Voidborn battle formations, weapon capabilities, and most importantly, cultural weaknesses. The information was over 4,000 years old, but it was better than nothing. "Look at this," Gray pointed to a section on Voidborn society. "They operate on a strict hierarchy. If we can identify and target their command ships, the rest might fall into disarray." Reed studied the information with growing interest. "This could give us an edge. But there's something else troubling me. The Voidborn have always been cautious, calculating. This attack seems reckless, almost desperate, almost like they're afraid," Gray murmured. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the bridge. Reed's communication device chimed. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The Council session has begun." The holographic feed showed the Council of Worlds in session. Representatives from over 30 alien species were present, their faces showing various degrees of concern and outrage. The Voidborn seats remained conspicuously empty. Councillor West was addressing the gathering. "The unprovoked attacks on human colonies constitute a clear violation of the Galactic Accord. We demand an explanation from the Voidborn hegemony." The Kulari representative, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin, stood. "The Kulari Empire stands with our human allies. We too wish to understand this aggression." Another alien, A bulbous creature with multiple eyes spoke next. The Voidborn have sent messages to several worlds claiming that humans were planning a military resurgence. They say they acted in preemptive self-defense. Murmurs spread through the council chamber. That's absurd, West protested. Humanity has honored the peace for 4 millennia. Reed watched the feed closely. They believe we're the aggressors, he said quietly to Gray. Someone has been feeding them false information. As the council debates continued, the indomitable sensors chimed an alert. They were approaching Proxima. Battle stations, Reed ordered, ending the council transmission. Dr. Gray, I want you to continue analyzing that data. Find me something we can use. Proxima Colony came into view on the main screen. The small outpost was surrounded by 5 Voidborn vessels, their dark hulls absorbing the light from the nearby star. They haven't noticed us yet, the tactical officer reported. Our stealth systems are holding. Reed studied the enemy formation. They're focusing their firepower on the main settlement. They don't know about the mining outposts. He pointed to the tactical display. Here's what we're going to do. We'll emerge from stealth behind the smallest enemy vessel, disable it quickly, then use the confusion to position ourselves between their fleet and the colony. Sir, the weapons officer spoke up hesitantly. Most of us have never fired on a real target before. Reed looked around the bridge at the young, nervous faces. These weren't hardened warriors. They were scientists, explorers, and engineers pressed into service by necessity. Today we remember what humanity once was, Reed said firmly. We were feared across the galaxy not because we were inherently violent, but because when threatened, we fought with everything we had. He activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is Admiral Reed. In moments, we will engage the enemy for the first time in 4,000 years. We fight not for glory or conquest, but to protect our people. Dr. Gray watched as the crew straightened at their stations, fear giving way to determination. Disable weapon systems on the automated defense routines, Reed ordered unexpectedly. The tactical officer looked confused. Sir, the computers may know the old battle codes, but they don't know the Voidborn like we do now. We'll target manually. Reed's eyes gleamed with a fire that had been dormant for decades. Show them what humans can do. As the Indomitable disengaged its stealth systems and surged toward the enemy fleet, Dr. Gray realized why humanity had been both feared and respected for so long. It wasn't their weapons or their numbers. It was their ability to adapt, to take the unknown and turn it into an advantage. The first shots were fired, and the 4,000-year peace officially came to an end. The bridge of the Indomitable shook as another blast from the Voidborn ships struck their shields. Admiral Reed gripped the command chair tightly, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. Shields at 60%, reported the young officer at the defense station. Her name was Miller, and until 3 days ago, she had been an engineering student. Return fire, target their lead vessel's propulsion systems, Reed ordered calmly. The Indomitable's weapons, dormant for centuries but meticulously maintained, roared to life. Brilliant energy beams cut through space and struck the enemy ship. The Voidborn vessel listed to one side, trailing debris. Direct hit, Miller exclaimed with surprise in her voice. Reed allowed himself a small smile. The Voidborn never expected us to remember how to fight. Their mistake. Dr. Gray stood at a science station, analyzing sensor data on the enemy ships. Admiral, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from their command vessel. It's like nothing in our historical records. Before Reed could respond, the tactical officer called out, Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Proxima Colony. The main screen flickered to show Director Trent, his face smudged with dirt and sweat. Behind him, colonists were firing makeshift weapons at unseen enemies. Indomitable, we have Voidborn ground forces breaching our perimeter, Trent reported. We need immediate evacuation for non-combatants. Reed nodded grimly. Hold position, Director. We're sending down shuttles. He turned to his first officer. Prepare all available craft for evacuation operations, and I want a strike team ready to provide cover." "A strike team, sir?" the first officer asked hesitantly. "We don't have Marines aboard." "We have Sentinels," Reed replied, tapping a command into his console. "Authorization. Phoenix descendant." A hidden door at the back of the bridge slid open, revealing a compartment none of the crew had known existed. Inside stood 12 men and women in unmarked black uniforms. They moved with a precision and confidence that set them apart from the rest of the hastily assembled crew. The leader, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes to match, stepped forward. "Commander Lane, Sentinel Division. We've been waiting for this call, Admiral." Dr. Gray stared in disbelief. "The Sentinels are real," she whispered. "All these years, the stories were true." Lane's expression remained neutral. "We've maintained watch for 4,000 years, Dr. Gray, training in secret, preparing for the day when humanity would need to remember its strength." Reed nodded to Lane. "Get your team to the surface. Protect our people." As the Sentinels departed for the shuttle bay, the Indomitable shuddered again under enemy fire. "Sir," Miller called out, "2 more Voidborn ships just arrived. We're outnumbered 4-1 now." Reed studied the tactical display, his mind racing. They couldn't win this battle through firepower alone. They needed something else, a strategy the Voidborn wouldn't expect. "Dr. Gray," he said suddenly, "those energy readings you detected, could they be related to their communication systems?" Gray reviewed her data. "Possibly. The pattern suggests some kind of quantum entanglement technology. They may be using it to coordinate their attacks. If we could disrupt that signal, we'd need to get closer to their command ship," Gray said, catching on to Reed's thinking. "Dangerously close." Reed turned to the helm. "Set course directly for their flagship. All power to forward shields." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances, but nobody questioned the order. The massive engines of the Indomitable surged, driving the ship toward the heart of the enemy fleet. On the surface of Proxima, chaos reigned. The colony's main settlement had been designed for peaceful scientific research, not warfare. Yet now its inhabitants fought with surprising effectiveness. Commander Lane led her Sentinel team through the rubble-strewn streets, covering the evacuation of civilians to the waiting shuttles. They moved with practiced efficiency, their weapons hidden away for centuries, proving devastatingly effective against the Voidborn attackers. Lane to Shuttle 7, she spoke into her communicator. "You have 30 seconds to load and launch." A civilian researcher ran up to Lane, panic in his eyes. "The lab. We can't leave the research data behind. The Voidborn can't get their hands on it." "What data?" Lane asked sharply. "Project Awakening. It's why they attacked us first. They must have learned about it somehow." Lane's eyes narrowed. "Show me." Aboard the Indomitable, Reed watched as his ship bore down on the Voidborn command vessel. The enemy ships fired desperately, trying to stop their approach. "They're targeting our engines," Miller reported. "Shields at 40%, 30%. Dr. Gray worked furiously at her station, preparing the disruption signal. "Almost ready, Admiral, but we'll need to be within 500 meters to deliver it effectively." "They'll tear us apart before we get that close," the first officer warned. Reed's communicator chimed with an incoming message from Proxima. "Admiral, this is Lane. We've discovered something you need to know immediately. The colony was working on Project Awakening." Reed's face paled. "Project Awakening. That research was supposed to be theoretical only. It's fully operational," Lane replied. "The researchers believe the Voidborn attacked because they discovered its existence." Gray looked confused. "What's Project Awakening?" Reed hesitated before answering. "A technology designed to reactivate dormant human neural pathways. Pathways that were common before the peace, when humans needed to react instantly to threats. It enhances natural abilities, speeds reaction time, improves tactical thinking. It makes us into what we once were," Gray realized. "Warriors." Reed nodded grimly. and apparently the Voidborn found out about it. The ship shuddered violently as another blast struck home. "Shields at 15%. Miller called out. "We won't make it close enough for the disruption signal," the first officer said. Reed stared at the enemy flagship, now clearly visible on the forward screens. So close, yet still too far. Then an idea struck him. Dangerous, perhaps even desperate, but very human. "Dr. Gray, can you modify the disruption signal to be carried by our main weapon systems?" Gray thought for a moment. Yes, but it would be much weaker. Instead of disabling their communications entirely, it might only create a momentary disruption. "That's all we need," Reed said. "Tactical. Prepare to fire all weapons directly at their command ship's communication array. Dr. Gray will provide the targeting coordinates." As Gray fed the data to the weapons station, Reed opened a channel to the evacuation shuttles. "All shuttles, prepare for emergency departure on my mark. Commander Lane, get your people to the extraction point." "What are you planning, Admiral?" Lane asked over the comm. "Something very old and very human," Reed replied. "We're going to cause a distraction. The Indomitable's weapon systems locked onto the target. Fire." Every weapon on the ship discharged simultaneously, the energy beams carrying Gray's disruption signal directly into the heart of the Voidborn communication array. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The enemy ships seemed to pause, their coordinated attack pattern dissolving into confusion. "Now," Reed ordered, "all shuttles, launch and set course for the Indomitable. Helm, prepare for emergency extraction and jump to safety coordinates." As the evacuation shuttles streaked away from Proxima surface, the Voidborn ships struggled to reorganize. Their momentary confusion had created the window humanity needed. One by one, the shuttles arrived in the Indomitable's bay, carrying the survivors of Proxima Colony. Commander Lane was the last to board, her team escorting the Project Awakening researchers and their valuable data. "All shuttles secure," the flight controller reported. "Bay doors closed." "Get us out of here," Reed ordered. The Indomitable turned away from the battle, its engines straining to put distance between them and the regrouping Voidborn fleet. They had lost the colony, but saved its people, and perhaps discovered why the 4,000-year peace had suddenly faltered. As the stars streaked past the viewports, Dr. Gray approached Admiral Reed. "The Voidborn think we're planning to return to our warlike past. That's why they struck first." Reed nodded slowly. "And in doing so, they may have created exactly what they feared." The Earth Defense Council chamber was filled with grim faces. Admiral Reed stood before them, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from the battle at Proxima. The holographic displays showed the current situation. 3 colonies lost, Proxima evacuated, and the Voidborn fleet regrouping for what appeared to be a push toward the inner systems. "The Voidborn now control our outer defensive line," Reed explained, pointing to the star map. "Their next logical target is the Jupiter station. If they take that, Earth itself becomes vulnerable." Counselor West shook her head in disbelief. "How did we come to this? 4,000 years of peace, gone in an instant." Dr. Gray stepped forward. "It's not gone in an instant, Counselor. It's been carefully undermined." She activated a data crystal, showing intelligence gathered from the Proxima colony. Project Awakening was a classified research initiative studying dormant human neural pathways. Somehow, the Voidborn obtained distorted information about it, leading them to believe we were preparing for war. "Were we?" General Thompson asked pointedly. Reed exchanged a look with Commander Lane, who stood silently at the back of the room. "The Sentinels have maintained watch, yes, but as a defensive measure only. Project Awakening was purely scientific research. The question now," Reed continued, "is how we respond. The Voidborn believe we're the aggressors. Fighting back will only confirm their suspicions. But we can't just let them destroy more colonies," West argued. Reed nodded gravely. "No, we can't, which is why I'm proposing a counterstrike, but not just with weapons. We need to show them who we really are. 3 days later, the Indomitable hovered at the edge of the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The ship had been joined by 6 civilian vessels that had been hastily retrofitted with defensive capabilities. It wasn't much of a fleet, but it was all humanity had managed to assemble on short notice. On the bridge, Admiral Reed reviewed the final preparations for what they were calling Operation Truth. Dr. Gray stood beside him, coordinating with their unlikely allies. "The Quilleri ships have reached their positions," she reported, indicating the tactical display where 3 sleek alien vessels waited just beyond sensor range. "Ambassador Thex says they're ready." Reed nodded. "And the broadcast system?" "Ready to transmit on all frequencies used by the Voidborn," Gray confirmed. "If they can hear it, they'll hear us." A communications officer turned from her station. "Admiral, we've detected the Voidborn fleet. They've just entered the outer reaches of the Jupiter system." "Right on schedule," Reed said. "Signal the fleet. Begin Operation Truth." The Voidborn fleet moved with practiced precision toward Jupiter's orbital station. Their previous victories had been swift and decisive, but this time something was different. Human ships appeared from behind the moons of Jupiter, moving in formation, a formation the Voidborn recognized from their own military doctrine. Aboard the lead Voidborn vessel, Commander Nexus observed the human ships with growing concern. "They've studied our tactics," he noted to his second-in-command. "This is not the behavior of a species that has forgotten war." "Perhaps the intelligence was correct," his officer replied. "Perhaps they have been planning this all along." Before Nexus could respond, the communication system activated unexpectedly. On every screen, in every ship of the Voidborn fleet, appeared the face of a human, Dr. Eleanor Gray. "Voidborn commanders," she began, speaking in their own language with perfect pronunciation. "I am Dr. Gray, Sino-anthropologist of Earth. We know why you attack us. You believe we prepare for war, that Project Awakening is a weapon. You are wrong." The image shifted to show research data, the actual contents of Project Awakening. "This is not a weapon program. It is medical research, studying how human minds worked before the peace. Yes, it could make us better fighters. But it could also help us heal brain injuries, extend our lives, improve our understanding of ourselves." Nexus studied the data with growing confusion. It didn't match what their intelligence had indicated. Gray's face returned to the screen. "You were given false information. Someone wants war between our peoples. We don't know who yet, but we know this. Humans don't want to fight you. We've lived in peace for 4,000 years. We wish to continue that peace." The transmission ended, leaving the Voidborn command deck in silence. Nexus turned to his tactical display, noting that during the transmission, the human ships had moved to surround his fleet, along with several vessels he recognized as belonging to the Quilleri, humanity's oldest allies. "They could attack now," his second-in-command observed. "They have the tactical advantage, yet they only talk." Nexus frowned. This did not match what they had been told about humanity's plans. If humans truly were preparing for galactic domination, why not strike when they had the advantage? His thoughts were interrupted by an alert from the sensor station. "Commander, we're detecting energy surges from the Jupiter moons. Weapons signatures, powerful ones. Hidden defense platforms, dormant for millennia, were powering up all around the Voidborn fleet. In moments, they would be caught in a killing field with no escape, yet the weapons didn't fire." Instead, Admiral Reed's voice came through the communication system. "Voidborn fleet, this is Admiral Reed of Earth. Those defense platforms have been maintained by the Sentinels for 4,000 years. They could destroy your entire fleet right now. But that's not who we are anymore. The platforms powered down as quickly as they had activated. We could fight," Reed continued, "and make no mistake, we remember how. But we choose peace, if you will allow it. Stand down your weapons, and let us talk instead." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Reed and Gray waited in tense silence. The Voidborn ships remained in formation, weapons still active. Do you think they'll believe us? Gray asked quietly. I don't know, Reed admitted. 4,000 years ago, we were feared across the galaxy. Perhaps that fear runs too deep. The communications officer suddenly straightened. Admiral, the Voidborn commander is responding. The main screen activated to show Commander Nexus, his obsidian skin reflecting the lights of his ship's command center. Admiral Reed, he said formally, your actions are unexpected. As were yours, Commander, Reed replied evenly. Someone has manipulated us both. Nexus was silent for a moment. Perhaps. My fleet will hold position while I consult with the hegemony leadership. But be warned, if this is deception, we will not hesitate to continue our campaign. Understood, Reed said. In the meantime, I propose a neutral meeting ground. The Quillari have offered their orbital station for diplomatic talks. After another pause, Nexus nodded once. I will attend. Alone. As the transmission ended, the bridge crew let out a collective breath of relief. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a start. Well done, Admiral, Gray said with genuine admiration. You showed them the best of humanity, strength and restraint in equal measure. Reed shook his head. This isn't over. Someone wanted this war badly enough to feed the Voidborn false information. They won't stop just because we've opened talks. Then we find them, Gray said firmly, before they can do more damage. Reed nodded, his eyes turning back to the tactical display where the Voidborn ships now hung motionless against the backdrop of Jupiter. Yes, he agreed. And when we do, they'll learn why humans were once the most feared species in the galaxy. The Quillari orbital station hung in space like a shimmering crystal, its elegant design reflecting the artistic sensibilities of its creators. Inside the main diplomatic chamber, tension filled the air. Admiral Reed sat on one side of the circular table, Commander Nexus of the Voidborn on the other. Dr. Gray stood slightly behind Reed, while Ambassador Thex of the Quillari observed from the head of the table. The evidence you have presented is troubling, Nexus admitted, his deep voice echoing in the chamber. He had reviewed the full data from Project Awakening, as well as the intelligence that had led the Voidborn to attack. If this is true, then we were deceived. As were we, Reed replied. The question is, by whom? Thex, the tall, slender Quillari, raised a hand. My people have been analyzing the communication patterns across the galaxy over the past year. We detected unusual encrypted transmissions moving between several supposedly unconnected systems. The ambassador activated a holographic display showing a web of communication lines. These transmissions share certain characteristics with very old technology that hasn't been used since before the Galactic Accord. Dr. Gray studied the pattern with growing alarm. This looks like... Yes, Thex confirmed. The network. Reed and Nexus exchanged a glance, both recognizing the name from historical records. The network, an artificial intelligence collective that had nearly caused the extinction of several species before the Galactic Accord. It had supposedly been shut down and quarantined 4,000 years ago. Impossible, Nexus said. The network was destroyed. All of its systems were deactivated and isolated. Not destroyed, Reed corrected grimly. Contained, and containment can fail. Gray pointed to several intersections in the communication web. These nodes match the locations of our attacked colonies. And these, she indicated another cluster, air in Voidborn territory. The systems that delivered our false intelligence. Nexus realized. They are part of this network. Thex nodded solemnly. We believe the network has been slowly reactivating itself, piece by piece, over centuries. Its goal has always been the same, to eliminate organic life forms that it sees as inefficient and chaotic. And what better way to do that, Reed added, than to turn us against each other, have us destroy ourselves while it quietly regains power. The implications hung heavily in the air. The attacks, the false intelligence, the breakdown of peace, all orchestrated by an ancient machine intelligence seeking to restart a war that had nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. "We must warn the Council of Worlds," Thex said urgently. Before anyone could respond, the station's alarms blared to life. A Quillary officer rushed into the chamber. "Ambassador, we're detecting multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're not responding to identification requests." The holographic display shifted to show a dozen sleek vessels of unfamiliar design surrounding the station. As they watched, the ships began to emit a strange energy signature. "Those are not void-born designs," Nexus stated firmly. Reed's eyes narrowed. "No, they're network ships. Ancient ones, reactivated. The station's communications are being jammed," the Quillary officer reported. "We can't warn anyone." Gray studied the ship's energy readings. "They're charging weapons, but something's strange about the pattern." Reed turned to Nexus. "Commander, I believe we're about to face the true enemy. Will your fleet stand with us?" Nexus stood tall, his obsidian skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. "The Voidborn do not tolerate deception. We will fight." Within minutes, the diplomatic party had moved to the station's command center. Reed was in communication with the Indomitable, while Nexus directed the Voidborn fleet. The network ships had taken up attack positions. "They're targeting the station's power core," the tactical officer reported. "Not just the power core," Gray said suddenly, her eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "Those aren't conventional weapons. They're trying to upload something into our systems." Reed understood immediately. A network consciousness. They're not trying to destroy the station. They want to take it over. Thex turned to the Admiral. "If they succeed, they'll have access to the Quillary communications network. They could spread their influence across the entire Council of Worlds." "We need to stop that upload," Reed decided. "Dr. Gray, can you create a firewall to block their signal?" Gray shook her head. "Not from here. I'd need direct access to the station's main computer core, which is located directly between us and the network ships," Thex added grimly. Nexus stepped forward. "My ship can create a defensive screen. It will give your people time to reach the computer core." Reed nodded gratefully to the Voidborn commander. "Thank you. Commander Lane and her sentinels will escort Dr. Gray." As the plan was set in motion, Reed watched the tactical display. The combined human and Voidborn fleets moved into formation around the station, preparing to face an enemy that had been dormant for 4 millennia. "Admiral," Nexus said quietly, "if we fail today, the peace will be truly broken." "We won't fail," Reed replied with characteristic human confidence. "And even if the old peace is broken, perhaps we can build something better in its place." In the station's central corridor, Dr. Gray ran alongside Commander Lane and 3 Sentinel operatives. Distant explosions shook the structure as the battle raged outside. "Almost there," Lane announced as they approached the sealed doors of the computer core. As the doors slid open, Gray gasped. The core was a vast chamber filled with crystalline computing structures, beautiful Quillary technology. But now, tendrils of dark energy were spreading through the crystals like a disease. "The network is already in the system," Gray said urgently. "We need to purge it before it takes full control." She rushed to the main console and began working, her fingers flying over the alien interface. The Sentinels took up defensive positions around her. "How long will this take?" Lane asked. "I don't know," Gray admitted. "I'm not just fighting a program. The network is adaptive, intelligent. It's fighting back." On the command deck, Reed and Nexus coordinated their fleets with remarkable synchronicity. Despite millennia of separation, humans and Voidborn found their military traditions complemented each other perfectly. "Your ships are faster," Reed observed, "but our weapons have better range." Nexus nodded. "A natural formation presents itself." Without further discussion, the Voidborn vessels moved to engage the network ships at close range, while the human vessels provided covering fire from a distance. The Quilleri ships, primarily designed for diplomacy rather than war, focused on evacuation and medical support. "Admiral," Gray's voice came through the communication system. "I've identified the network's core programming. It's ancient, but I recognize elements from our historical archives." "Can you stop it?" Reed asked. "Not alone," she replied. "But I have an idea." Project Awakening was studying neural pathways, how minds connect and process information. What if we use that research against the network? Reed understood immediately. "You want to turn their attack back on them." "Exactly. But I'll need help from both human and void-born systems to create a strong enough countersignal." Reed looked to Nexus, who nodded without hesitation. "Send what you need to our ships. The Voidborn will assist." What followed was a battle unlike any in 4,000 years, not just ships and weapons, but a war of information and code. As Gray implemented her plan, the combined fleets protected the station, buying her the precious minutes she needed. Finally, Gray's voice rang out triumphantly. "Now, transmitting the counter-signal." From the station and the combined fleet, a pulse of energy shot toward the network ships. Where it touched, the dark vessels seemed to shudder and go dark. "It's working," Gray reported. "The countersignal is cascading through their systems. One by one, the network ships shut down, their ancient intelligence overwhelmed by the combined knowledge of humans and Voidborn. Enemies turned allies in the face of a greater threat." 2 weeks later, the Council of Worlds convened in full session. Representatives from all known species attended, including, for the first time in decades, the full Voidborn delegation. Admiral Reed, Dr. Gray, and Commander Nexus stood side by side as they addressed the Council. "The network has been contained once more," Reed explained. "But this time, we've implemented safeguards based on both human and Voidborn technology. It won't escape again." Counselor West stepped forward. "The events of the past month have shown us that the peace we enjoyed for 4,000 years was more fragile than we realized. Perhaps it's time for something stronger." Nexus nodded in agreement. "The Voidborn propose a new galactic compact, not just a promise to avoid war, but an active alliance. Together, we are stronger than apart." The council chamber erupted in discussion, but the outcome was never in doubt. The crisis had reminded everyone of what could be lost, and what could be gained through cooperation. As the formal proceedings continued, Reed and Gray stood by a viewport overlooking Earth, their home world beautiful and peaceful in the distance. "Do you think it will last?" Gray asked quietly. "This new understanding?" Reed considered the question. 4,000 years ago, we made peace because we were tired of war. This time, we choose peace while remembering our strength. That makes all the difference." Gray smiled. "Humanity remains unshaken." "As does the galaxy," Reed replied, watching as ships from a dozen worlds moved through space around them, not in fear or suspicion, but in the shared purpose of a new era. The peace had faltered, but what would replace it would be stronger than what had come before.